Greetings everyone, welcome back to Nick's Mods, or rather Skybird's Mocs. Yep, it's another collab like the Nitron Blacktron one. This time Skybird mailed this to me himself. Why was that necessary? Because this one-of-a-kind creation has modified parts. That's a line I don't usually cross. Bionicle G2 had an interesting thing going with its translucent colors. Each of its 6 elements was represented by one. Reddish orange was fire, purple was earth, green was jungle, yellowish green was stone, light blue was ice, and dark blue was water. The smaller half of G2's first wave, the Protectors, convey this very effectively. The Protector of Fire even spicing things up with a trans yellow highlight. But not all of these colors carried over to their Toa counterparts. Lewa simply omits trans green, going all in on solid colors. Gali does have trans blue elements, but they're the lighter icy shade like Kopaka's. Whoever's budgetary decision this was probably figured water and ice are basically the same, and I would argue that light blue is a closer match for the opaque azure parts, extremely clean. The addition of dark trans-blue shells over the lighter bones gave 2016 Gali a more intense two-toned look, the layered shades blending vibrantly. But it's a shame G2 never gave us bones in this color, an especially glaring omission in 2015's second wave, where every elemental color had a villainous skeletal counterpart, except for dark trans-blue. There is no water baddie, only the other 5 elements, so who's Gali supposed to fight? Aside from duplicates of the remaining villains. For about a decade, I've wondered how a water skeleton would shape up. Maybe a siren, like an evil undead mermaid? Something pirate-themed? These zombies are supposedly former pirates. Well, Skybird came up with a pretty unique character that feels right at home in G2. The Skull Shaman! After all that build-up, you're probably wondering how this character can exist when many of these pieces don't. That's because they're light blue pieces that Skybird dyed darker. Like I said, we may be crossing a line with this episode. It's only shorter bones for a short character, but it's enough that from the waist up, we can finally see what a dark trans-blue Gali looks like. Bet you never thought you'd see the day. And it's not just the blue. He also dyed a bunch of silver pieces gunmetal, or at least close enough. It's a slightly warmer shade, like if LEGO made gunmetal in the 90s. These include hands, feet, bones, a skull basher / Scorpio mask, and a 5th skull spider variant, cause why not? Most impressive is this dark trans-blue ribcage, which doesn't merely feel like a slight tease if you've always wanted to see it on a torso. So here's what that looks like. And here it is on Stormbeast. But this makes Skull Shaman unique and is the kind of creative parts usage that I like to encourage in LEGO, official or not. As for the build, this guy doesn't feel like a physical fighter. Though he can defend himself with his right arm, most of his power is in that staff. The jagged ends of the ribs continue down those tattered feathers, cloths, and their solid deep blue coloring along with the dyed trans pieces excellently contrast Gali's gentle surface blues. And since they both wield huge weapons, this build is a mirrored version of Skybird's instructions, Shaman waving the staff with his left hand to complement Gali's right, further differentiating their silhouettes. I like to think he drowned in a pool or one of the many still flowing canals in the city of the mask makers, rising like the creature from the Black Lagoon or a kappa in response to the Toa's presence. He wields one of the 2 skull villain weapon molds that they're all obligated to use one of in some way, and in a new way this time that fits the character. I also like this minifigure weapon attached as armor just to give him a little more sharpness and asymmetry, which you'd think there'd be more of in the other skull villains. It also helps that this piece was actually released in 2015. And like all the skull villains, there's some trans orange connecting his essence to that of his master, Skull Grinder. I especially appreciate that instead of going all in with a second head at the end of the stick, Skybird used a socket, which can hold G2's masks just fine, so those aren't even actual eyes going back there, just some hellish spirit. Skull Shaman is built like a protector, even using the skull villain's texture add-on as chest armor, just like the protectors wear the Toa's pistony equivalent. And maybe he was a protector in life, but a tougher specimen like Akimu or Makuta, and with his slightly longer legs and those crazy antlers, he's not much shorter than the other skulls, or even some shorter Toa. But here's what really makes the guy work. Even outside Bionicle, water as an element is commonly associated with healing. Well, what do you suppose this waterlogged corpse does? Yeah, he's that one enemy you always gotta kill first or he'll resurrect the rest over and over. Imagine him lurking behind the other skull's protection and our heroes have gotta rush through a crowd to get him and retake Gali's stolen mask. And naturally, like every G2 character, yes including the protectors with their geared weapons, Skull Shaman has a gimmick. It isn't a gear function, but a levered one like some of the other villains, raising his arms. It's not an attack that'll pull the mask off a Toa like the other baddies' gimmicks are at least intended to, unless you get a really lucky shot with that claw. But it is an expressive, characterful gesture. He could be taunting a Toa, or calling on his brethren to arise! Again, I'm impressed by this original function accomplished with relatively few pieces in a tiny space. But I don't think it would pass LEGO stress tests, prone to flying apart or unmasking himself. And while I appreciate the gunmetal parts, I've wondered if it might be too much of a good thing, clashing a bit with the other skulls who all have silver bones in hands. Yet swapping them diminishes his own character, his uniqueness, so I'm keeping him as is. The biggest flaw, you could say, is that unlike the other skulls with their corresponding Toa's masks, he can't actually wear Gally's, not without removing the horns, but that's not Skybird's fault. Gally's mask just wasn't designed for that. Most of them aren't. You can still mount it on the end of the staff though. Close enough. Bionicle G2 wasn't a line that could exist today. Not only are most of the molds destroyed, but a third of those translucent elemental colors have been retired, leaving Tahu missing armor, Poatu missing bones, and most of the Toa and all of the skulls brain missing, so it feels even more precious to add a color to the mix. Skull Shaman is a pretty great OC, a fully realized and deceptively formidable little gnome wizard. It is so satisfying to so many years later complete 2015's villain roster with a water-themed dark trans-blue character, and all with pieces that existed at the time. Sort of. The lack of a sixth member always felt like a big hole in the Skull's defenses. It made them seem all the less formidable against a Toa, who all look so big and armored and strong. The Lord of Skull Spiders can fill that gap, but doesn't fit right. This though, this works. Now things feel more even, without the need for multiple Skull Warriors or Scorpios or whatever. He also looks great with Gally and Kavoda, completing the year's water trio and complementing their colors more than any other Toa's skull. 1 year ago I never would have imagined this, and even when I saw the mostly completed Skull Shaman in Skybird's vids a few months ago, I never expected it would end up in my house, and I really have to thank Skybird for the opportunity to build Skull Shaman, experience a rare glimpse into an alternate 2015 that had an official set like this. Maybe I should have saved this for next April Fools. I made sure that this man got his money's worth, and if he sells more dyed pieces in the future, I'll probably be first in line. You can find his channel linked in the description and a pinned comment. He also sent me this OP as heck 18-barrel triple minigun that I haven't fired yet because I'm afraid to find out what'll happen. That's it for today. Check out my books on Amazon and itch.io, and my Patreon page to get videos like this early, your name in the credits, behind the scenes content, a patron Discord server, signed copies of Planet Ripple, and maybe even your own LEGO Rewind episode. See you next mod. Toodles!